"Remove it," Judge Denton said. "Now." Duty isn't loud. It does its work in rain and silence and the measured echo of boots on wet stone. If you want more stories like this, real service, real stakes, subscribe now, because what happens here will decide whether honor is something you wear or something you are. The drizzle stitched silver threads across the marble. SPC Daniel Reeves stood at attention, jaw set, the tomb guard identification badge, outsiders called it a medal, fastened over his heart. Early morning mist drifted low over the rows of white headstones, a tide of ghosts listening. The rope line nearby trembled in the wind like a held breath. Judge Denton's gold pen clicked against the gavel. Click, click. "Private display in a federal hearing is inappropriate. You will remove that item." Reeves didn't blink. The thumb on his rifle hand tapped, 1, 2, 3, then stilled. His voice came quiet, granite smooth. "Sir, this badge isn't vanity." Major Grant Walters shifted, cleaning his glasses like he always did before bad news. CPT Marissa Hall stood between the judge's folding table and the dark, rain-specked stone, her head tilted slightly as if weighing truth against regulation. SSG Elijah Brooks stood half a pace behind Reeves, posture a ruler could love, eyes pinned to the invisible line that runs through every ceremony at the tomb. "Vanity or not," the judge said, "this proceeding concerns alleged misconduct. The badge prejudices the atmosphere. Remove it." Thunder patted somewhere beyond the trees. The flag snapped once, a precise report. The small gathered crowd, tourists who didn't know they had wandered into something bigger, veterans drawn by rumor, cemetery staff, fell to a hush that felt like pressure in the ears. Brooks didn't move. The rain rolled clean off the brim of his cover. "Sir," he said in that calm voice that could shear arrogance like wire, "the badge isn't decoration, it's the record of a promise." Denton's eyes narrowed. "Staff Sergeant Brooks, this court doesn't try promises, it tries actions, and I'm ordering its removal." The judge's pen tapped again, quicker, gold flashing in the gray light. Ozone and damp wool scented the air. Reeves's hand hovered over the badge, fingertips grazing the cold metal. The engraving felt like a pulse under his skin. Duty never ends. Hall exhaled through her nose, slow, controlled. "Your Honor," she said, voice steady, "the Tomb Guard identification badge is awarded for a standard of duty nearly unmatched in the Army. If the concern is bias, we can note it on the record and proceed without—" "Counselor," Denton cut in, "you may note your objection. I will not have iconography sway this room." Reeves looked straight ahead. Rain tracked down his cheekbones like unacknowledged tears. "With respect," he said, "this isn't iconography." "What is it, Specialist?" The pen stilled. The judge leaned back as if he'd found a better angle to see the man he intended to bend. Reeves swallowed once. "It's the unknown reminding me who I am." A murmur moved through the onlookers like wind through flags. Walters cleared his throat, but Brooks's slight head turn stopped him. The Sentinel commander didn't need words. His presence said them. All sharpness, no edges wasted. Denton's gavel struck the portable block with a crack that jumped across stone. "Remove it or be held in contempt." Water dripped from the rifle sling, ticking against marble. Reeves unclasped the pin backing, metal against metal, an insect bite click, and held the badge in his palm. The rain made it gleam like a live coal. He didn't lift it from his chest. Brooks's voice, softer now. "Dan." Reeves blinked once, a soldier's blink, permission to breathe, not to break. "Sir," he answered without turning. "Remember," Brooks said, and the word carried weight like a formation stepping off. "Remember the line, the creed, the nights when lightning splits the sky and you keep walking. Remember that we defend what cannot speak." The crowd's breath seemed to fog in unison, though the air wasn't cold enough for it. The smell of polished stone rose when the rain thickened. Somewhere, a child fussed and was hushed by a parent who sensed ceremony without understanding it. Hall took a small step. "Your Honor, this hearing can proceed without humiliating the soldier. The badge can be covered." "Enough!" Denton snapped. He lifted the pen, then set it down. The motion felt rehearsed, as if he choreographed fairness. "We will not parse compromises. Remove it." Reeves looked at the tomb, just visible beyond the judge's back, its white surfaces beaded with water, its stillness the only argument that ever mattered. His voice was thin with feeling, but held at regulation volume. "There are lines we do not cross." "Is that your final answer?" Denton asked, rolling the gold pen between two fingers. The sound of it, faint and metallic, grated like a dare. Brooks's eyes never left the line, but his jaw flexed. He spoke to the judge without raising his volume. "Sir, the badge has been earned in the company of the unknown. You're asking him to leave his post." "This is not the plaza," Denton said, a smile that wasn't a smile touching his lips. "This is the law." A gust tossed rain into everyone's faces, the flag snapping twice like a reprimand. Reeves closed his hand around the badge until the edges dug his skin. He inhaled, faint taste of copper and rain. He pictured his midnight walks, 21 steps, 21 seconds, rifle-angled, heel to toe on polished stone that had learned the pattern of his weight. He pictured the storm that swept the plaza last season, how the marble smelled like electric stone and the air like raw sky. He pictured how the unknown had never complained, not once. "Sir," Reeves said, eyes forward, "with respect, no." The silence was a held blade. Denton's jaw worked. "Contempt, then." He raised the gavel. The world shrank to a circle of rain and breath, and the sound of a single drop landing on the badge in Reeves's fist. "Hold," Brooks said, stepping forward 1 precise inch. Walters shifted, glasses in hand. Hall's head tilt deepened, weighing law against honor in real time. Denton's gavel hovered. "Specialist Reeves will not remove what he earned at the tomb," Brooks said, each word clipped clean. "If there is taking to be done." He drew up beside Reeves, shoulders squared to the judge, rain running down his collar. His next words carried across marble and mist to the first row of headstones as if they wanted witnesses. "Then you'll have to take it from him." The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, faint and tired, their reflections smearing across the polished wood of the ceremonial hall. Outside, rain whispered against the glass, steady, relentless, like the discipline of a soldier who refuses to yield. CPT Marissa Hall stood at the long oak table, files open before her. Across from her, Judge Harold Denton adjusted his robe collar, that gold pen of his tapping against a notepad in a rhythm that seemed to test everyone's patience. SSG Elijah Brooks stood behind SPC Daniel Reeves, who still wore his badge despite the formal reprimand. "Let the record show," Denton began. "Specialist Reeves remains non-compliant with the court's directive." The sound of the pen tapping stopped. The silence that followed felt heavy enough to bend air. Reeves straightened his back, voice steady but quiet. "Sir, permission to speak freely." Denton's brows lifted, sharp and disapproving. "Granted, though I warn you, your words may affect sentencing." Reeves nodded once. "That badge, sir, isn't decoration. It's a promise I made when I took the guard's oath, a promise to those who can't answer back." Brooks's gaze didn't move, fixed on the far wall where a framed image of the tomb hung under flickering light. He didn't blink, didn't breathe louder than he had to. "Promises don't excuse insubordination," Denton said. "Explain how a piece of metal justifies defiance of lawful order." Reeves's thumb tapped his rifle strap, 1, 2, 3, and he let the memory open, slow as dawn. "It was 2 years ago," he said. "Winter storm, winds topping 60 miles per hour. They told us to suspend rotations. Command deemed it unsafe." Hall folded her arms, waiting. The room was still except for the hum of old bulbs and the patter of rain. "I was next in line," Reeves continued. "Could have stayed inside, warm, dry, alive. But that tomb wasn't empty. That stone covers every soldier who never came home. I couldn't leave it alone in the storm." The judge scoffed softly. "So you risked your life for marble?" Brooks's voice cut in, calm, absolute. "No, sir. For memory." Denton turned his stare on him. "Staff Sergeant, you'll remain silent unless addressed." Brooks didn't answer, but something in the tilt of his jaw said, "Make me." Reeves went on, his voice low, reverent. "When I stepped off, the wind nearly pushed me sideways, could barely see my hand. The rain hit like gravel. My rifle weighed a ton. Every 21 steps felt like 21 miles. He unclasped the badge, holding it out for a moment in the dim light. The metal glinted, cold silver cut with black engraving. Hall leaned closer, reading. Duty never ends. Denton frowned. A phrase, a motto, nothing more. No, sir, Reeves said. It's a covenant. That night, lightning hit the flagpole. The marble split with heat. I thought I was finished. Then I heard thunder roll over the hill, and it sounded like boots. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, marching. The room went still. Even the hum of the lights seemed to pause. I don't know what it was, Reeves said softly, but I knew I wasn't alone. So I kept marching. Because that's what the unknown expects. Hall looked up from the badge. Her tone softened. Your Honor, this medal represents more than achievement. It's a symbol of silent service. To force its removal is to deny that service ever existed. Counselor, Denton said, symbols inspire emotion. Emotion clouds judgment. The Army survives on order, not sentiment. Brooks's voice, quiet as a prayer. Order without meaning is just movement. We march because of what stands still beneath us. The judge tapped the pen, faster this time. I will not debate philosophy with soldiers. The fact remains, your conduct challenges authority. You make yourselves martyrs of procedure. Rain hammered harder against the windows, like applause from the heavens. Hall stepped closer, her voice cooling but fierce. Sir, you call it defiance. I call it preservation. If soldiers stop standing for honor, who stands for the unknown? Denton turned his gaze to Reeves again. You expect the law to bend to feeling? No, sir, Reeves said, calm but unyielding. I expect the law to remember who it serves. The judge leaned back, rubbing the bridge of his nose. You believe this badge defines you? Reeves shook his head. No, sir. It reminds me I don't define myself. The judge's lips tightened. He reached for the badge on the table, but Brooks's hand landed gently on Reeves's shoulder, a signal, not a restraint. Hall broke the moment with a quiet breath. Your Honor, she said, holding the medal under the light, look closely. She tilted it. The inscription caught a beam from the flickering bulb. Duty never ends, glowing like fire across its face. One word at a time. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The sound of thunder rolled through the ceiling, echoing like footsteps on stone. Brooks spoke again, voice low and steady. Every guard who's ever worn that badge carried more than weight. They carried silence. They carried sacrifice. They carried the nation's grief, one measured step at a time. Denton didn't answer. His jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the words burning on the metal. The fluorescent light flickered once more, then went out completely. The room sank into darkness, lit only by the faint blue flash of lightning through the window. When the light returned, the badge was still glowing faintly in Hall's hand, as if remembering the storm Reeves had survived. The judge cleared his throat, voice quieter. Proceed with the next witness, he said. But there was something shaken in the way he said it. As Hall placed the medal gently back on the table, a single drop of rain fell from Reeves's hair, landing on its surface. The sound was soft, but it echoed through the hall like a drumbeat. Everyone heard it. The silence afterward wasn't ordinary. It was sacred. And somewhere deep within it, the words, "Duty never ends," seemed to breathe. Winds at 60 knots. Command says stand down. The radio crackled in Reeves's ear, half drowned by the roar of the storm. He tightened his grip on the rifle stock, thumb tapping it once, twice, 3 times. Then silence. The rain hammered his cover, soaking through every seam of his uniform until it clung like armor made of ice. He looked toward the white marble of the tomb, barely visible through the sheets of rain. Lightning flashed, bright enough to burn the world white for a heartbeat, and in that moment he could see it. The words, "Here rests in honored glory an American soldier, known but to God." He whispered, "I'm not leaving you." The storm didn't care. Duty doesn't wait for weather. It doesn't bend for comfort. It just keeps walking. And if this story moves you, subscribe now, because this is the kind of courage the world forgets too easily. The wind shoved at his chest like an angry god. Reeves set his heel to the marble and began his 21 steps. Boots struck stone, sharp and deliberate. Water pooled along the line, rippling with each strike. Every breath turned to fog and vanished. 21 seconds. Halt. His voice was steady, reciting the rhythm drilled into his bones. His reflection flashed faintly in the slick marble, distorted by rain. It didn't matter. The unknown didn't need perfection, just devotion. Lightning exploded across the horizon. The flag above the plaza whipped so violently he thought the pole might snap. Thunder rolled so close it rattled his ribs. He turned, rifle down, arm across the chest, perfect. And then, movement, not from the crowd line. There was no crowd tonight, but from the air itself. It shimmered. For a second, Reeves thought exhaustion was playing tricks. But the next lightning flash revealed something different. Faint shadows of figures forming through the mist, standing in rows behind the tomb. Some wore helmets from wars long past, WWI, Booty, Korea. No faces, just outlines. He froze, heart hammering. "Sir?" He keyed the radio, but static answered him. The wind seemed to hush. The only sound left was the rain drumming against stone and the deep rumble of thunder far away. Then, boots. The faint rhythm of synchronized steps echoing through the storm, invisible but unmistakable. 21. Pause. 21. The sound came from everywhere and nowhere. Reeves whispered, "You're still here." He didn't move, didn't blink. The world had shrunk to the tomb, the rain, and the unseen ranks that guarded it before him. His uniform clung like a second skin, rough and cold. His fingers were numb, but his grip never faltered. The next lightning strike split a tree in the distance. The blast shook the ground, throwing spray into his face. The marble under his boots trembled. He staggered, caught himself, set his stance again. "Reeves!" Brooks's voice broke through faintly in his earpiece. "Son, get cover. That's an order." Reeves swallowed. "Negative, sir. The unknown doesn't get cover." "Daniel!" The radio died in a burst of static. He turned again, steps perfect, rifle balanced, eyes locked on the tomb. His lips moved, words carried away by wind. "As long as I breathe, you will not be left alone." The storm screamed around him. Water flowed down the marble steps like small rivers. Each stride felt heavier, like gravity had doubled. But he kept moving. He remembered the training, discipline over instinct, ceremony over chaos. Then, the lightning hit the flagpole. The flash blinded him. The sound was a hammer to the chest. He hit the ground hard, ears ringing, smell of burnt air thick as smoke. His vision blurred, light, shadow, rain, and silence. He blinked. The world was white noise and memory. Through the haze, a shape moved closer, one of the shadowed figures from before, stepping out of mist. It stopped at the rope line, head bowed, shoulders squared like a soldier at rest. Reeves couldn't see the face, but the outline was clear. A man in old fatigues, rifle at his side. The figure raised its hand, slow, deliberate, and saluted. Reeves, trembling, saluted back. The wind eased, rain softened, and for a single impossible heartbeat he heard a voice, not through ears, but somewhere deeper, inside the rhythm of his breathing. "We never left. Keep walking." Reeves blinked, and the figure was gone. The storm swallowed the plaza again. He forced himself to his feet, body shaking. He picked up his rifle, water cascading down the barrel. He reset his stance. He started walking. 21 steps, turn, 21 seconds, turn. He couldn't feel his fingers anymore. His lips were split. His uniform weighed double with rain. But the silence between thunderclaps felt full, filled with presence, with unseen ranks standing beside him. Hours later, when dawn finally broke and relief arrived, they found him still, walking, eyes locked on the tomb, body half frozen but posture perfect. Brooks was first to reach him. "Specialist Reeves," he said softly. "Stand down." Reeves halted, saluted, and then collapsed to his knees. The rifle clattered on marble. Brooks caught him before he hit the ground. "What the hell were you thinking?" Brooks asked, voice cracking for the first time in years. Reeves tried to speak. Only one word came. "Duty?" Brooks looked at him, then at the tomb, and something like pride flickered in his eyes. "Then you've earned it." He unclipped a small velvet case from his own coat, one he'd carried for years, and pressed it into Reeves's shaking hand. Inside gleamed the silver badge engraved with the words, "Duty never ends." The morning sun cut through the last of the storm clouds, turning the marble bright white again. The air smelled like wet stone and ozone. And as Reeves looked at the tomb, every drop of rain on it seemed to shine back at him, like unseen soldiers standing at attention. He whispered, "I heard them." Brooks didn't ask who. The camera would linger on that moment, the broken flag fluttering behind them, marble shining, two soldiers standing in silence, one drenched in rain, the other holding out the proof that some promises outlive storms. The courtroom was colder than any storm. Fluorescent light washed everything pale. Uniforms, marble floors, faces that had forgotten what warmth looked like. Rows of press benches sat empty now, only the low hum of an overhead vent breaking the silence. SSG Elijah Brooks stood at the defense table, posture straight as a rifle barrel. SPC Daniel Reeves sat beside him, dress uniform pressed, metal polished, eyes steady. At the far end, Judge Harold Denton adjusted his robe and raised that gold pen like a conductor testing for silence. "Proceed," he said. His tone could have carved glass. Brooks stepped forward, boots clicking once. "Your Honor, permission to speak on Specialist Reeves's behalf." Denton tapped the pen against his notes. "You are aware, Sergeant, this isn't a forum for sentiment?" "I am, sir." Brooks's voice carried the calm of men who've already faced worse. "But duty isn't sentiment." The judge nodded once, unimpressed. "Then explain to me, Sergeant, why defying an order should be considered anything less than insubordination." Brooks looked down the polished corridor of the courtroom. The reflection of the flag hanging behind the bench shimmered in the floor's shine. When command says, "Stand down," and the soul says, "Stand firm," sometimes a soldier has to choose which voice he answers. The words hung there. CPT Marissa Hall, seated nearby as counsel, didn't interrupt. She just tilted her head, studying Denton's face, searching for a sign of understanding. Denton's pen tapped again, sharp, metallic. "The military survives because men follow orders, Sergeant." "Yes, sir. And it honors itself because some men follow principle." Silence stretched. Rain tapped faintly against the windows again, gentler than before, like the echo of the storm Reeves had endured. The judge leaned forward. "You speak of principle, yet I have on record a refusal, an open challenge to authority, and a symbolic defiance before witnesses. You, both of you, believe that badge entitles you to disregard command?" Reeves spoke, voice quiet but cutting. "No, sir. It obliges us to remember who we serve." "And who is that, Specialist?" Reeves looked at the courtroom doors. Beyond them, faint light spilled in from Arlington's endless rows. "The ones who never got to stand here and answer for themselves." The judge's jaw tightened. He started to respond, but Hall rose. "Your Honor," she said, "you've heard facts. Allow the record to hear context." She picked up the file before her, but she didn't open it. Instead, she held the badge in her hand. "This emblem represents a creed of silence, precision, and sacrifice. Every man who earns it does so knowing he will be forgotten by name, remembered only by conduct. The tomb guards are not showmen. They're sentinels." Reeves didn't disobey out of pride. He stood his ground because the unknown can't ask him to. The words filled the room like slow thunder. Denton rubbed his temple. "Counselor, you may save your speech. The facts remain." Hall's eyes didn't leave him. "Facts without meaning are just ink." Brooks stepped beside her. "Sir, with respect, the day Reeves walked that plaza in the hurricane, the only law was devotion. We measure men by their obedience. I measure them by what they protect when no one's watching." Denton slammed the gavel once. "Enough." The sound cracked through the air, bouncing off the wood and walls like a rifle report. Everyone froze. Even the hum of the vent seemed to pause. "You soldiers," Denton said, his voice rising for the first time, "speak of honor as though it sits above the law. You wear it like armor against discipline. But if every man acts on his own sense of right, there is no army, only chaos." Brooks's face didn't change, but his next words came slower. "And if every man obeys without conscience, there is no soul left to defend." Hall's head turned slightly, just enough to see the judge's grip tighten on that gold pen. The rain outside quickened. Denton's gavel hovered. "This court will rule, effective immediately. The Tomb Guard identification badges of Specialist Reeves and Staff Sergeant Brooks are revoked." Both are to be reassigned pending disciplinary review. The words landed like hammer blows. Reeves didn't flinch. Brooks didn't move. Walters, sitting in the back, lowered his glasses and rubbed them clean, his silent ritual of disbelief. Hall's voice broke the silence. "Sir, reconsider. Revoking that badge isn't punishment, it's erasure. You can't take what's become part of a man's marrow." "Watch me," Denton said. His hand came down. The gavel struck. Crack. The sound echoed, metallic and final. Brooks looked down at the polished surface of the bench, his reflection flickering inside the curve of the judge's gavel. For a moment it wasn't a courtroom anymore. It was marble, rain, and the tomb beyond. He turned slightly to Reeves. "Daniel," he said, quiet enough that only Hall could hear. "He can revoke a badge, not what it stands for." Reeves nodded, eyes distant. "Yes, sir." The judge stood, gathering his papers. "This hearing is adjourned. Guards, escort these men out." The bailiff stepped forward, hand hovering near Reeves's shoulder. Brooks shifted instinctively, placing himself half a step in front. The motion was small but unmistakable, a sentinel protecting his own. Denton froze mid-motion, that gold pen still between his fingers. For a second, he didn't seem sure what he was seeing. Brooks straightened his cover, shoulders square. "Permission to speak once more, sir." "Denied," Denton said. Brooks didn't stop. "You can take our medals, but not our post. Because the tomb isn't guarded by badges, Your Honor. It's guarded by men who keep their word." Denton's eyes met his. Something, pride, maybe guilt, flashed there before he turned away. The gavel lowered again, softer this time, as if the judge himself wasn't sure he wanted to hear the sound. The courtroom doors opened. Wind from the plaza slipped inside, cool, carrying the scent of wet grass and stone. Reeves looked back once at the bench, then followed Brooks out, every step the same measured cadence that had carried him through the storm. And as the doors closed behind them, the faintest echo of thunder rolled somewhere over Arlington. The sky over Arlington was a bruised gray, clouds thick and heavy with unfinished rain. Reporters clustered on the courthouse steps, cameras aimed, microphones trembling in the wind. The rumor had already spread. 2 tomb guards stripped of their badges by order of a federal judge. But the men themselves didn't rush. They moved the way sentinels always move, controlled, measured, 21 steps worth of grace in every stride. "Here they come," someone whispered. SSG Elijah Brooks led, cover low against the wind. SPC Daniel Reeves followed, his badge still pinned to his chest, though the paperwork said it no longer belonged there. Beside the steps stood Major Grant Walters, hands in his coat pockets, rain collecting on his shoulders. "Gentlemen," a reporter called out, voice slicing through the hum, "do you have a statement? Do you intend to appeal?" Brooks didn't answer. He stopped at the foot of the courthouse stairs and looked up at the flag overhead, limp from the damp air. For a long moment, no one breathed. Then he spoke. Quiet, deliberate. "When you guard the tomb of the unknown soldier, you learn something about silence. It isn't weakness, it's reverence. But sometimes," he paused, eyes lifting to the storm, "sometimes silence becomes surrender." Reeves stood beside him, water dripping from his brim. "Sir?" Brooks unclipped the tomb guard badge from his chest. The small piece of silver caught what little light there was and gleamed like a tear. He turned it in his hand once, thumb brushing over the words, "Duty never ends." Then, with the crowd watching, he knelt and placed it on the courthouse steps. A single metallic clink. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Reeves understood before anyone spoke. He reached up, unclasped his own badge, and placed it beside Brooks's, 2 small tokens glinting side by side, wet with rain. Brooks straightened. His voice was calm, steady. "The law can take metal," he said, "but it can't take meaning. You can strip a badge, not a promise." Judge Denton appeared at the door above, his robe dark against the marble. He looked down at them, gold pen still in his hand, his expression unreadable. "Sergeant Brooks," he said, the words almost lost in the wind, "what do you hope to prove?" Brooks raised his eyes. "That honor doesn't need permission." The wind chose that moment to rise, tugging at flags, whipping the reporters' hair and mics. Cameras clicked like gunfire. Somewhere, a veteran in the crowd saluted, hand trembling but sure. Walters stepped forward, voice quiet but firm. "Sir, this will make headlines." Brooks didn't look away from the judge. So be it. Maybe it's time people remembered why the unknown still matters. Rain began again, fine and cold. The badges shimmered where they lay, reflecting both men's faces in their wet surfaces, one younger, one older, both unyielding. The judge hesitated at the top of the stairs, the gold pen in his hand stilled. He looked down at the badges again, at the men who refused to dishonor the silence they served. He descended one step, then another. The crowd parted like a tide. When he reached the bottom, he stood facing Brooks and Reeves. No one spoke. Then Denton did something no one expected. He lifted his hand and saluted. The motion was crisp, perfect, unmistakably military. For the first time that day, the cameras stopped clicking. The only sound was the wind, carrying the faint hum of the flag as it unfurled behind them. Brooks returned the salute. Reeves followed, jaw trembling just once. When the judge lowered his hand, his voice was softer. "Perhaps I judged the wrong men." Brooks shook his head. "No, sir. You judged by the book. We lived by the oath." Denton looked at the badges glinting on the wet stone, then turned back toward the courthouse doors. "Leave them," he said. "They belong here now." He walked back inside without another word. The crowd broke its silence, not with cheers, but with something purer. Quiet respect. A dozen men removed their caps. Someone began humming the army hymn under his breath. Reeves knelt once more, fingertips brushing the badges. "What now, sir?" Brooks looked past him toward the distant hill, where the white marble of the tomb shimmered faintly through the mist. "We go back to where duty started. Our post is waiting." The two men turned from the courthouse, their reflections stretching long across the rain-slick stone. Each step echoed like a drumbeat of history, deliberate, solemn, unbroken. Behind them, the badges gleamed in the gray light. The flag above caught a sudden gust, snapping open in full color at last. Sunlight cracked through the clouds, striking the badges with brilliance so bright it hurt to look at. The crowd fell silent again. Somewhere out there, past the rows of white markers, the tomb stood unmoved, its guard returning, its silence kept. And as Brooks and Reeves disappeared into the mist, their measured cadence fading into the sound of the rain, the wind carried one truth across the marble hills. Duty never ends. If this story moved you, subscribe now. For the men who serve in silence, and for the honor that no storm, no order, no gavel can take away.